as well as the individuals that will be recognized tonight. We call those individuals up to receive a token from the Board of Education, which is a gift certificate. It used to be at a bookstore, Borders, or what was the other one? Barnes & Noble. But since they've chosen to sort of go out of business, we now give one to Target, where kids could spend anything that they want, hopefully on books or CDs or clothes. But it's just a small token of our appreciation. And once the one sport is recognized, we usually ask a board member. This time it's such a small crowd, I think what we're going to do is just after all 15, if all 15 students are here tonight, is just to have them come up at one time on the stage, and then we will take a group photo of those students and the board, which is then put on our website and sometimes put into our paper. So with no further ado, I would like to turn this over to Gene Cahan, who will then introduce the coaches.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers and the board. I still want to enter the names of the athletes because I think some of them are here and maybe some aren't. First, in girls basketball, I don't see Coach Wofford out in the audience, so he can't speak to them, but they had two young ladies that were recognized as all-conference in the Southland Conference. Ashley Henry, I don't think she's here, and Brianna Young. Brianna? In boys basketball, Coach Kaplan isn't here. They had three individuals that were all conference: Marty Keith, Laquan Treadwell, and Michael Orse. Again, I don't think any of them are here tonight. Next is our girls bowling team, and if you allow me, I'm going to walk the microphone over to him because he's on crutches. Might be a little easier and maybe faster.
Good evening. This year, for the girls bowling team, we had one girl, Jasmine Fisher, who was elected to or earned the right to be considered all-conference at the all-conference meet. She started off the season great. There's a beginning of the season tournament that Rich East holds that pretty much like 12 or 15 of the top teams in the area compete at, and it's a great way to open up the season. And Jasmine was able to take a first place at that invite for total overall score over 6 games. And she continued her stellar senior season for the rest of the season to the conference meet where she was able to gain all conference. And at the sectionals, which looking at who qualified for the state championship meets and stuff, we did have the toughest sectional, where the two teams that won our sectional were actually the two teams that competed against each other for the state championship, and Jasmine was still able to compete against some of the top bowlers in the state. So she had a very good senior season this year.
And then finally, our wrestling program that had an outstanding year, and I'd introduce their head coach, Rob Zimmerman.
Thank you. This year's wrestling season was probably one of the best seasons we've had in a very long time here. We were co-conference champs with Boone. First time we could consider ourselves conference champs in 26 years, so it was quite an accomplishment for us. We had 5 all-conference wrestlers, and we had 2 state qualifiers, which one individual placed 6th at that state tournament. The 3rd wrestler in Crete High School history that we know of who is placed at state, so we have a lot to be thankful for. First wrestler, sophomore, 160-pound weight class, Brandon Hannigan. Second, 182-pound weight class, Kyle Tilley. I told them all to wear black shirts today, but two. And 195-pound weight class, although he weighs more like 182, he wrestled up all year, outstanding season, Anthony Cephas. Regional champ, took a 5th place at the sectional, was about 3 points from qualifying for state as first year wrestler, Travis Smith. I don't see this person here, but our 5th all-conference was Keith Backert. Turned out at the end of the season and were able to make their way downstate and wrestle at the IHSA state tournament. 170-pounder, Rasheed Flowers. Our last wrestler, Austin Rosenfeld. Finished the season at the state tournament, placing 6th as a heavyweight, and they'll be back next year, hopefully healthy and ready to go, and bring home the state medal. First place.
That's a big boy. Yeah, he is.
We went into the sectional with now one senior, no seniors competing in our regional or sectional, so all my guys will be coming back next year, so hopefully we have just as many next year standing up here in front of you. Thank you very much.
All right. Now, we would like for all the students to come up on stage, and we would like the board members to stand either next to them or behind them, however it fits. And Miss Berta will direct all of you. Yeah, it would make the taller boys, if you would stand behind some of the shorter, either girls or some of the boys, that would help.
Mr. Brown, if you could just come a little bit this way. Stand in my pit now? There you go, there you
They all look small to them.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Can I ask the students for just a minute to hold on for just 1 minute, just 1 minute? The board wants to say something to you all, so just give them a minute, very quickly. Mark Rose, President.
I just, every time there's a sports thing that comes up like this, my kids were involved in sports there, and wrestling and cross country, my son was, and the effort that you guys have to put out in order to train and go to all the meets is tremendous for you guys to continue to enjoy yourselves to do something like that. I also want to commend all the parents that have to go out and drive and come and see you and support the student athletes like that. I know most of you guys are student athletes, so congratulations to you and best of luck in your sports endeavors later on this year or the next year. So congratulations, thanks.
They're not done yet. They're not done. We're just going to go down the line going left. Board Member Hall, because I know she wants to say something.
Oh, my
It was wrestling.
And I'll be
Near
brief.
dear to her.
Excuse me. I, too, want to commend all of you for, I know it's hard juggling school and being an athlete, so I hope you all are doing that very well. And also to the parents, I know how it is. All of my kids are in sports, so I commend you as well. And to the young man, first year wrestling, wow, that's awesome. Just keep going and keep, keeping your eye on the prize, and I'm sure you'll do even better next year. And to the ladies, to the young ladies, just to see you all, I think about, I was somewhere and somebody was talking about cheerleading is not a sport, and I'm a former cheerleader, and I think sometimes as young ladies, what we do, kind of gets put to the side, but I want to say to you guys, keep going forth. There's scholarships out there for you as well, so keep, your dream or whatever it is you desire to do if you want to go on to college, and that's for all of you. It's possible. Don't stop. It's possible to play your sports in college and do your academics as well. So congratulations to all of you.
Board Member Heisel.
I'd like to, it's just more of the same. Congratulations to all of you. I know the hard work. I coached both men's and women's gymnastics. I know the dedication they had, so I know what the kind of things that you're going through. Bowlers amaze me because whenever I throw the ball, I clip my heel and I limp out of the lanes. Wrestling, I tried once when I was in high school, and I found out the mat wasn't supposed to be on top of me, so I gave that up, and that's why I went to gymnastics. It was nice to be up in the air breathing chalk dust. But congratulations to all of you, and parents, I want you to know that after they graduate and they go on, it gets easier, your driving goes down, you'll save money on gas, and life becomes a little bit easier at home. Yes, you understand. But congratulations to all, and parents, thank you for all you've done to get these young people to where they are.
I think you're lying.
Yes.
Congratulations, everyone, and God bless out here, for sure. And the hard work that you put in, supporting your kids and making sure they do their schoolwork and get practice. And I think everyone else has echoed my sentiment.
The same for me. I mean, they've already said everything I could possibly say, so, yes, and I agree with Nakia. I have a friend who did go to college on a bowling scholarship, so go for it.
Board Member Sanders.
I probably will say the same, except that I agree that it's pivotal, I think, for students to participate in something beyond what they like. I am so impressed with each of you, especially the basketball player, because I wanted to be a basketball player so bad. I had skills, only thing I couldn't do was run a lot, and I ran out of breath, so it's not the case now. I just want to encourage you guys to continue to be student athletes, being the academic portion first, and foremost, as some of my colleagues have just mentioned, scholarships. And this is the big thank you to the parents. At the end of the day, to be successful in something that you enjoy doing, playing, after all, it is a sport, and to actually be rewarded for it, it's a phenomenal thing. I'm a testament to an academic student as well as a student who has an athletic scholarship, and it helps mom and dad. So do your best, continue to get those grades, and make it count. Thank you.
Board Member Brown.
I wish you all well. Continue doing what you're doing. Continue to use your mind. The mind is a terrible thing to waste. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you, guys.
And I just want to say in closing, I know the parents were definitely thanked for their dedication, but I don't want to forget the coaches, and I know people did not forget them intentionally, but you rock. All right, tonight. Ron, I know you are happy. Coach Zimmerman. A long battle to get the program where you want it to be, and to Gene, I want to make sure that you give the proper recognition in the school to the growing programs, because I think as kids are recognized in front of their peers, more so, that will just help grow the programs more. More and more kids will want to be interested and will want to join. Just seeing the collegiality among the players today, from different sports, to high-fiving each other and so on. Keep up the good work. Remember, it is about academics first, athletics second, but the combination of the two is a tremendous combination that can take you very, very far in life. So, again, thank you, parents, thank you, students, thank you, staff, for coming out tonight, and take care.
We're going to continue on with our business portion of the meeting here, so we'll give you, if anybody would like to stay for the business portion, you're more than welcome to do that, but I'll give you a minute or two if you'd like to leave.
Say it a little more.
Stay.
Marty's saying, Mr. Rossi. They're related for sure. If she's willing to.
All right. I think we'll begin the business portion of the meeting, so I'd like to call the meeting to order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mrs. Coletti? Here. Mr. Heisel?
Here.
Mrs. Sanders?
Here?
Mrs. Stockton?
Here.
Secretary here, President Rose?
Present. I'd like to stand for a pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
President Rose, I forgot to mention that we do have Board Member Stockton had one piece of good news that she wanted to share from during Around the District also.
Yes, I wanted to share the fact that the Crete Monee Band had a fundraiser this weekend on Saturday. They sold mattresses, and of course I didn't understand exactly how they could do that. So I investigated myself and ended up purchasing a mattress, and there were at least 34 other people that purchased mattresses, and the band itself made $3,500.
Right.
I say next time they sell mattresses, let the board know.
Huh?
So let the board know.
That's what I said. I knew the
I was hoping everybody would see the big signs out everywhere, because that's my first question was, what does the yellow sign mean?
That's good. I'm sure that the money will be used for part of the band program, probably to purchase instruments or music or something that goes along with that. I know one of the things that I was always involved in too was trying to get dollars in order to send kids to camps and things like that too, so, you know.
And
it's different.
It's a more interesting way of doing it because we don't have to beg our family, our friends, our neighbors to purchase an item to help the band. This way, we can get more people involved, more people show up, which was very interesting.
Okay. Very good. The next item that we have on the agenda, do we need a early closed session at all?
No, sir.
Okay. Next item on the agenda then is the consent agenda. So I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Heisel,
Second?
second by Mrs. Coletti. Any comments or questions? Okay. Now, we got a motion for the consent agenda. Would the secretary please call the roll?
Mrs. Coletti? Aye. Mr. Heisel?
Aye.
Mrs. Sanders?
Aye.
Mrs. Stockton?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Secretary, aye. President Rose?
Aye. I believe that we did have a donation, not only from some of the work that the band boosters were doing, along with a donation from, I believe, BP towards the middle school, where they received a $300 donation from BP. So we thank the BP Petroleum for their kindness in awarding a $300 donation to the middle school. The next item that we have on the agenda is action items. First one being the approval of updated board policies, which I entertain a motion to approve the updated board policies as stated in the agenda.
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Heisel.
Second.
Second by Mr. Brown. Do you have any questions or comments?
Is this, because, I'm sorry, is this the, are these the board policies that are under consent or under action?
No, action.
Okay,
We're under the action items. The consent was already approved.
I'm sorry. I
It's
do
okay.
want to, anytime there's policies that the policy committee asked for either revisions of, or that I feel that the policy just needs to be explained one more time to the public because of it possibly having some broad ramifications, I bring those to the board. So I want to start with 830, which talks about visitors and conduct on school property. I want to make sure that the board does agree with the one change in number 10 that's red. We talked about this in closed session for a legal reason, and then we talked about it in the policy committee, and the way it was originally worded, the committee wanted it worded differently. So this is what we came up with. Record classroom instruction with audio. Well, the preliminary sentence before that, let me just go up. So, the school district expects mutual respect, civility, and orderly conduct among all people on school property or at a school event. No person on school property or at a school event, including visitors, students, and employees shall, and then it starts, strike or injure, behave in unsportsmanlike, possess a weapon, and so on. So then when you get down to 10, and again, forgive me because my computer just doesn't want to act right tonight. You get down, shall record classroom instruction with audio or audiovisual devices without the school administration and teachers' knowledge. Now, that first sentence is law, meaning you cannot record someone with audio or audiovisual without their knowledge. That's the Eavesdropping Act. The second sentence is such recordings without knowledge are illegal, so it's just to state that. And then the third sentence, visitors must also attain permission from the building administration if they would like to use an electronic note-taking device in a classroom while instruction is taking place. It's not saying that you cannot use it, it's just saying that you should attain permission. And I specifically narrowed it down to electronic note-taking. So this does not mean that cameras are disallowed. I mean, it was brought up in the meeting that I think we almost put all electronic devices, and there was a lot of scenarios that if I'm coming to take pictures of my son, give a speech or something of that nature. So we're only talking classroom instruction, and we're only talking electronic note-taking for the purposes that our attorney said that we need to consider. Other than that, let me see, is there any other red in this policy?
Just the word, I think.
Yeah.
One
Right.
word.
Yeah, at the top. So other than that, that's the significant change, and I just wanted to, are there any board members that have concerns about that, or can I go to the next one? Because if you do, I guess we need to hear them tonight. Okay.
No concerns?
We'll go to the next one. The next one,
Give us a page number, Doctor.
yeah, I will.
It'll make me a little
Give me a
easier.
second here. Like I said, I apologize. Page number 77, and it is 890, policy 890, parent organizations and booster clubs. Again, this is pretty significant for a variety of reasons. What happened, unfortunately, without giving, school identification or the situation, but there was a situation in the recent history, unfortunately, of a parent organization that had an officer that is accused of taking money from the organization. And so I did have board members say, do we have anything in policy to address this? Because what can we do to protect our parents from this happening again? And so we did consult with our attorney. Our attorney suggested a couple of things. One would be specific procedures that are called, Bob, what do they call, it's almost like in an audit, internal checks, there's a special name for
Just
it.
internal controls.
Yes,
probably.
internal control procedures to make sure that this couldn't happen again. And the second thing that he suggested was there are types of insurance or bonds that you can require an organization to take out. So if there is a loss of money, there is a way to possibly recoup that from an insurance policy or a bond. And so with that said, and knowing that there's quite a few of our board members that have sat on parent organizations at one time or another and still may sit on a parent organization, this would be true of PTOs or any type of basically parent organization that collects money from students or fundraisers. So because of that, I think it's important that I read, the sub-points. It says that if you're going to collect money, then you must have in your bylaws and the following things, and you must strictly adhere to them. Number one, officers of a parent organization must be a parent or a guardian of a child in the district. Unfortunately, this incident that I talked about, we found out that the officer who allegedly was accused of taking this money wasn't even a parent in the district. It was it was a boyfriend, to be honest with you, a boyfriend. So that's problematic if you're not a parent or guardian of a child. Number two, all checks or withdrawals from a parent organization's bank account must require a dual signature for checks or withdrawals over $50. A lot of us are familiar with that. I know when I was principal, that was an internal control that we had, that you could not write a check or you could not go to the bank and withdraw money unless it was a dual signature on the withdrawal deposit or withdrawal slip or the check. Now, there was some discussion over the amount of money. I'm not going to go into it, but $50 is what was settled on with the policy committee. C, the parent organization's bank statement should be reconciled on a monthly basis by someone who does not have signatory authority over the checking accounts. Each check should be compared against appropriate purchase orders and receipts to verify that the expenditure was indeed authorized. The reconciliation of bank accounts should be reported monthly at each one of the parent organization meetings, and if not, at least mailed monthly, because you may not have a meeting every month. But since you have to reconcile your account monthly, you should at least mail the report to the members of the organization on a monthly basis. And when we say that, that could be 30 days away from the month of the reconciliation. So if you're reconciling an October report, you may not actually get it mailed out until the end of November for October. D, parent organizations should eliminate the use of cash to any extent possible. When cash collection is unavoidable, two people should be at the collection point. They should count the money together. The money should be taken to a bank deposit as soon as possible. Money deposits should be recorded and reconciled. And then I think this is the last one. An annual audit of the organization's financial records should be performed by an accountant or an auditing firm. The final audit report should be shared with the members of the organization at an annual meeting where the agenda item for reviewing the audit is publicized at least 30 days in advance of the meeting, and a copy of the annual audit should be forwarded to the district's business manager for the purposes of having on record that the audit is completed each year. Now again, our attorney made it very clear to me, and I think I said this to the policy committee, we are not in the business of trying to control what the organization spends their money on. There are guidelines in the policy. They're very few, but we are not in we're not in the business of doing line item veto power, in the sense of if they want to order, let's say, printers for teachers' classrooms, that the board is going to say, no, we're not going to allow you to order that unless it's something, again, that is against policy, against law, or, it's just not legal or, unethical or unfair in some way. And that once it's bought, it is the property of the school, and that's in the policy. Number 8 does say that, basically, that there has to be a recognition clause in the bylaws that says that money or items that are donated will be approved by the school or district, and it can't be in violation of federal laws or Title IX. All right, and also, last thing, donation or gifts to the school or the district become the property of the district. Last of all, insurance requirements. For district insurance purposes, each year, each parent organization must submit a list of events to the building principal of all events that the parent organization plans to sponsor. We checked with our liability insurance company, and they said they would like to have this list because actually they could cover accidents that may happen at parent-sponsored events. I'll give you 2 in particular. Every few years there is a district fun fair. So like if a parent or child slipped and fell or something happened at one of the games, it's covered if it's on the annual list and submitted to our insurance company so that the PTO isn't in any kind of trouble for sponsoring the event. Our foundation, even though we did discuss this, that we feel they're a little different, but I'm still just using their annual sort of before homecoming barbecue that they do. Again, since it's outdoors and a lot of things could happen, if that is listed on the annual list, that would be covered in case anything happens. The second point, each parent organization that has a bank account collects money from students or staff or the community at large for various fundraisers must obtain a crime insurance policy, is what is commonly called, or it could just simply be a treasurer's bond or an officer's bond for the person who's collecting the money. We did check into this. There's 3 different sources that you could get this from that I found. I'm sure there's many others. 1, our own insurance company actually sells it. 2, the National PTO organization, not the PTA, but the PTO is also a national organization. If you go to their website, they sell this policy to members, and I don't think you necessarily have to be a member of the national organization. You can just contact their agents to buy this. And then last of all, I checked with one of our local insurance companies in our community, one who actually serves on our foundation, who sells insurance, and she says this type of insurance she's well aware of. It's more of a bond, the type that she sells, and it would cover and sort of do the same, serve the same function as a crime insurance policy. Last of all, failure for parent organizations to comply with this policy will result in the board ceasing to recognize the organization as a district parent group, and will move to eliminate the group's access to district property, students, or staff. Now, again, our attorney said you can't stop the organization from being an organization. They can choose to be named anything they want to and decide to meet off of school property, even though we did say that they would have to have permission to use our name or logos, unless you're going to really try to go to court over that. Our attorney said that's really something that you really would, you could fight it, but it may not be worth the fight. What you can do, which is more black and white, is just simply say, if you're not willing to follow these guidelines, then you can't have access to our students or staff. You can meet anywhere you want to off of district property, make all the plans you want, but when you want to fundraise, you won't have access to our students or the property, which would make it almost impossible for them to collect money unless they do it, other ways off district property, which is still possible. The only reason why I bring this to your attention tonight is because if you agree to this, if you vote on this, or if there's enough of you, say for whatever reasons, you want to make additions, you want to table it tonight, whatever, I will tell you that we are going to have a meeting with our principals and the heads of parent organizations that we would probably not call in until the end of this year. This would not be a policy that we would expect for you to, have done by tomorrow. But for sure next year, which would give people the spring to digest it, the summer to do whatever they need to do in terms of purchasing the proper insurance, to get certain procedures in place so that by the fall of next year, the things that they need to do and the things they need to submit, they would be ready to do it. And I will tell you, just because I just believe this, you will probably have some organizations that, 1, will not understand, or 2, might be upset. We will handle that, and we can handle that at our level, but as you well know, there are some people who will want to take it as far as they can and may decide to come to a board meeting and complain and say that this is just either not right, not fair, whatever. So that's why I'm bringing it to your attention, because to pass a policy like this is very different than what we've done in the past. It does It does demand more accountability as it relates to the collection of money and the accountability of expenditures. And again, I just want us to be on one accord, because I don't want you to be blindsided in case you start getting emails eventually or have people come to board meetings. So with that said, I'm going to be quiet on this one and let any board member who wants to respond to this.
I have a couple of responses. In the meeting, I thought we had said something about also having the officer's name on file on the district office. I didn't see that in here. I don't know if that was an oversight.
Okay.
Just so we're aware of who are, the current officers for the school year. So each school year, like for instance, with the case before,
Yes.
we didn't know
Right.
about a boyfriend being, someone that wasn't the parent or guardian being one of the officers.
Yes. We can add that. I will ask Terry to make a note, so if you do pass this tonight, we can say the motion would have to read with that addendum that the names of the officers would be on file at central office. Okay, point one.
And did we clarify as far as 7A, officers of a parent organization must be a parent or guardian? Are we clarifying guardian? Because we did talk about how some grandparents are raising grandchildren, or they're just heavily involved in the children's lives. They may not be the guardian, so to speak, but maybe, they're the ones that can be involved when mom or dad is working. So are we defining what guardian is?
I think that George Elrod and I had a conversation about the term guardian, and if it meets the test that you can legally register the child.
Or make decisions on behalf of the child.
But there was 3 words that he used. There's actually a legal litmus test for guardian, and I forgot, if he was here, he would tell you what the 3 words are. But if they pass those 3 words, and they have a meaning, that if you heard them, you would know exactly what they mean, then you can be considered a guardian. So it could be grandmother, it could be auntie. In fact, he told me, honestly, if they do pass all 3 of those, it could actually be someone who totally has no blood connection to the child, but they are given guardianship because they passed the 3-word test.
Okay. Also, 7B, we said we need 2 signatures for over 50, and they're not liable for cash checks over 500 with 1 signature. Is that supposed to be 500?
It's supposed to be.
It should be 50. They should match. So it's 50 and 50. Thank you for that correction.
Sorry. And last one, how are we going to notify our PTOs? I'm really concerned. I want to make sure that they are notified as soon as possible if this passes tonight. Like you said, it will give them time to digest and make any types of changes. Particularly, we're getting at the end of the school year. We're going to be having elections for the next officers and possibly changing over of signatures at banks. So I just want to know what's the method we're going to use.
Yeah, I've thought of this heavily, and this is what I would do. Tomorrow, the principals have a meeting with me, and if no other policy would be presented, first of all, I have a separate meeting to talk about all of these policies, because there's some significant policies this time around that are sort of game changers in a way. But this one, because of the very reasons that you're talking about, I would demand that they present this policy to their organizations at the next meeting, whenever that is. So if it's April, which would probably be the next meetings, that they would present. Also, that they would communicate in some way to get as many of the organization members to be present when this presentation is made. Second of all, we can get names and addresses minimally of the officers to send a written letter of this policy, but what we're going to also ask is that minimally the president or the designee if the president wants to send the treasurer or secretary or whatever, or all the officers can come and make an appointment with Bob individually between now and June. They could do it at their convenience and Bob's convenience jointly, but I think there needs to be some guidance that we need to give them in terms of the internal procedures, as well as the actual, we have applications of some of these insurance policies that we can actually show them with contact information of who to call. And again, we're not saying you have to pick out of the 3 that we give them, but at least to give them an idea of what the policy, what's involved in it, how lengthy the application is, how to prepare to purchase that type of insurance and so on. But those would be the 2 or 3 things that we would do immediately, because I do think this is something that needs to be gotten to the organizations as soon as possible.
I only had one. I thought, correct me if I'm wrong, we discussed the same volunteer policy as far as background checks for the officers of these organizations. In light of the situation, that took place,
I think you're right.
these individuals are handling funds, and the bottom line is, no matter what we've stated here, these are important because it deals with the integrity of the whole school district. Their Monee PTO and Crete is always preferenced in the beginning, so certainly the volunteers or people who take parents' money should have some measure of test.
I agree, we did. I forgot. That was one point, so as I took my notes, it must not have gotten in the notes. But now since you say, I remember it, because I even remember the question being asked, who would pay for the background checks? And we said that we would at least pay for the officers' checks. They have to do it, but we'll pay for it. So we need to add that as part of the amendment also, Terry. That would be, I would put that under B, so everything else would move down. B would become C, C becomes D, and so on, because I think that should be the second point made. First of all, you need to be a parent or guardian, and then second of all, you need to be background checked.
I just had one question, Bob, maybe you could answer, based on your experience in the financial world. 7E, the annual audit shall be performed by an accountant or auditing firm. What would your estimate be on what that would cost? Because a lot of these groups, they are like nickel and diming trying to raise money and then to take on that burden.
It would be unrealistic for them to hire a CPA firm, I think, because that's going to be very costly in terms of, it could be a few $100s, which is going to, take away one fundraiser that they do. But I think the policy is open enough where it says an accountant, so it doesn't necessarily have to be like a CPA firm, name brand type place. They're basically just saying somebody that's qualified to look at, an independent person to look at their books to kind of just review it and report back to the PTO. So if that's somebody they know that prepares taxes, or a friend that's an accountant, or if they want to find somebody that wants to do this work as, side work maybe for $100 or something. But I think certainly to expect that they get, McGladdery and Pullen to audit their books, it's going to be $500 probably just to look at it.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
So maybe that's something when you have, a meeting, Bob has a meeting with each
Yes.
group, maybe have a list of people he might know of who could provide that service, because a lot of these groups
That's the
have the
reason.
resources.
That's the very reason why we said, a true auditing firm is not going to
No.
look
At certain people's books unless there's a certain volume of work there for them to make it worth their effort. And so I like the idea, though, of having an approved list, because I don't like the idea of Uncle Joe necessarily, who just happens to be an accountant, to be someone who audits the book. So I think that the district needs to develop an approved list. It could maybe be 10 people
And they can choose any of the 10 as long as it's one of the people on the list. Now, that's going to be a little bit of work on our part, but I think it's well worth it. We may have to actually interview some people to make sure that it's, legitimate.
Do we have anybody qualified in the district?
That's a thought that we could.
Sorry, my question was, do we have anyone qualified in the district that might be able to do this for our PTOs?
I think our present supervisor of accounting is a CPA, right?
She's currently working to get her CPA. I know in the past, the bylaws of another organization related to the district had a similar clause, and they had the same concern with they didn't want to, spend a large amount of money on a CPA firm. So our past accounting supervisor actually performed the audit for them. Just internally, they had met. She did the audit, did a basic report for them. My only concern was when I saw, now instead of just doing the one, we'd be doing possibly, 10, 11 audits internally within the business department, so.
Yeah, I'm not saying that she should do it. What I'm saying, just like teachers who may volunteer, and the key word is volunteer, to be on a tutoring list for a fee. If there is anyone in the district who truly is qualified, I think all Board Member Hall is saying is that we should not eliminate their consideration. They may say, look, I don't have the time or the desire to do it. And so obviously we're not forcing it. And certainly I don't think the business office should do it as part of practice. Then it sort of looks wrong in the other way too. That, in fact, I know our attorney would definitely be against that for reasons of, again, control beyond what we should have in terms of the organization. Right. So I think coming up with a list of 3, 5, 10 maximum of people who may be willing to do this work on a fee basis or per project basis is good enough, and then the organizations can just pick somebody. So I'm done with this policy unless there's any other questions about it. Okay, going on to the next, 2130. Board superintendent relationships. I think there's nothing to bring to your attention. This particular one, I just wanted to just make sure that the board understood that these were a part of the IASB discussions. They're in two places. The ones that dealt with the board and superintendent communication and relationship with each other, I felt was most appropriate to put under policy 2130, which already exists. There was no discussion even really by the policy committee on this one in particular, but I just am bringing it to your attention. The next policy is new, and that would be considered the Board of Education agreements, the sort of principal statements, and principal with PLE ending statements, which isn't a new policy. I will say there was conversation around one in particular, which was the visitation guideline, and I did change it based on what the board members at the policy committee asked me to widen it a little bit. And so you'll see it, I don't know the paragraph, but it says in regards to visiting campuses. This is page 81. Board members will follow the established check-in procedure for parents and public. 2, if a board member is visiting the school in the official capacity of a board member, only under those circumstances, board members will inform the building principal, comma, his or her designee, comma, or the front office staff. So it could be any of those of one's presence in the building and the reason for the visit. There was some concern about sometimes the principal's not even there. I don't want to be held up just trying to have to see one person. So we're just basically saying it can just be the front office staff, or a designee who happens to be there, the assistant principal or whoever. It's just sort of a courtesy just to drop in and say, here, I am here, and I'm not here as a parent. I am here in my official capacity, and just to state, and it could be just a visit, and I think if it's just something, let's be honest, because we really hashed this one out. If it's a public invitation to an event that anyone can come to, we're not saying that you have to specifically come just because you don't have a kid in the school. So let's say that it's a school play. You don't have a child at Talala, but you want to go to this event. You don't have to go to the front office to say, I'm here as a board member because I don't have a child to see the school play, because it's open to everyone. But if there is an occasion that you want to be there for other reasons, whatever those reasons are, but you are in the official capacity of a board member, not a parent, we're just asking that you would just stop by the office, that's all. That's really saying. I think this was the only one, there was a lot of conversation about this, but that was the main one where the policy committee asked me to revise that bullet, so I did what the policy committee asked me to do. I don't think there were any other changes to this policy. So is there any comment on this one by any of the board members? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Because I'm trying to figure out what's the difference between the first point and the second point. Because when you're checking in as a parent, you sign in, there's a section on the form that says, ask what your reason is for your visit, as well as what area you are going to. So explain the difference between the two.
There probably isn't a huge difference. It's just the fine line that I think it really just boiled down to the few of us that were there. And again, everybody was not in agreement with this, but it came down to what we considered just a courtesy check. There were, things that were mentioned that we don't want, well, let's put it this way. I'm trying to think of how to word this appropriately. We did not want this to end up being a trigger for a broadcast. And what I mean by that is sort of some sort of alert that goes out that there's a board member in the building, everyone's, running and doing all kinds of things now all of a sudden that maybe they wouldn't do normally. It was to keep things as normal as possible. I will say if that has happened in the past, that should not happen. I will tell our administrators again to remind them that that's not the purpose of this. And also another thing is we don't need administrators escorting board members around the building. If a board member would like to be escorted, that's one thing, but if a board, I can go to wherever, then it shouldn't be forced. I know I'm going off a little bit here, but there's a particular furniture store that I would go to. I can't stand it when people follow me around the store. I can't barely take it, because what, you actually think I'm going to put this couch in my pocket and walk out the store? So why are you following me? And if I tell you, when I need your help, I'll tell you that I need your help. But until then, please stop following me around the store. So I will make sure that it plays right on both sides. There was, there were board members that expressed some true concerns, and I think those concerns are valid, especially if some of them are true. And so I think that we need to, I just think courtesy was the word that was used over and over, courtesy check. And I think that we need to be friendly, we need to be receiving, we need to be receptive, we need to be embracing, and we don't need to ever, as I tell you over and over and over again, none of us up here are children, none of us need to be treated like children, and we all need to respect each other and just be adults and go about the business of what we do. I'm an educator, you guys are board members, and we understand our roles, so I'll leave it at that.
I would say that I have no problem saying that I did have a problem with this policy, and I did express the reasons why, and the examples that you're giving now, I shared those. And again, I don't see the difference between the two. I don't feel like as a board member it's my job to notify the principal if I'm in the building. If the secretary wants to do that or someone else, then that's fine. But basically, I feel like I'll follow the procedure like any other person entering one of the buildings, and there's no need for this second
Screening.
The second bullet.
yeah,
Okay.
the second addition or explanation or whatever was felt needed to be added on. And again, I was not in attendance of that meeting, and so for those reasons, I don't support that bullet.
I don't know if the president or anybody else, all I can say is duly noted, because, you know, you and I and the policy committee, we definitely talked about this. I enjoyed the conversation, but this is, I came back with what the majority of the policy committee asked me to change, so I did change it from what it was, which was a little different than this.
John, I just want to go back, if I may, to the, I can't, I've been looking. When we receive and we do get quite a few correspondence from constituents, I want to
Are you
know,
on the same policy or the superintendent one?
well, and that's what I'm trying to verify, but I'll just say it,
You
and
just
maybe,
say it.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So the question becomes, you know, we get the FYI, and depending upon how significant the, are you showing me?
81.
Depending upon how significant the inquiry is, or, you know, maybe even not, it doesn't need to be specific, such a large issue, but any correspondence that we get, the rule of thumb has been, or what you guys have asked us to do is obviously to not necessarily respond, but to forward the email to you for your response.
Yes.
So here's, and I'm guilty, and I'm okay with this, in responding, because if someone sends me an email, I'm going to respond. But to send the email and forward it on to you, my expectation is that at some point, and I notice just in larger emails, fine, we'll get a broad FYI response. But even as, I think I've heard, you know, people come in and speak, what is the follow-up on, is there a way that the follow-up, even in the correspondence, especially that which we send you, is that we get feedback on that? And I just say that because as we're talking about agreements, we commit to not necessarily, if I can't respond to them, and, you know, could be just simply that I don't have enough information,
Right.
and certainly don't speak for the whole board, but nevertheless, wanting that information spent back to me, because specific message, or will I talk to the district office, and they
Told me XYZ opposed to, and me not getting anything. I don't know what you in the district office stated, but the original inquiry came to me, and now I'm out of the loop.
Yeah. Here's what I'm going to say, and I appreciate the comment, because I want everyone to let this soak in. I will also admit that I have not always followed up with board members who have sent things to me the way the policy is written. I'll be the first to admit that, okay? But I'm not in disagreement with the policy. So if we adopt this, I'm going to follow the policy. So again, if a board member sends me, whether they've responded or not, but if they send it to me and says, you know, by the way, I did respond, usually I see the response, and a lot of times it's just general, thank you for, your concerns. I'm going to pass this along to the superintendent for them to, follow through. In the future, I've tried here lately, I hope that you guys have seen my efforts to try to put a lot of these things that are brought up either in meetings, whether it be here, committee meetings, or emails, to follow up. But to say I've been perfect, I'll be the first to say I haven't. But if this policy is adopted, I know I will be talking with my secretary because she's very good at keeping me on track with things. And she will tell me, you have not responded, just like she tells me a lot of times, you need to call, this person called, and you have not returned their call yet, blah, blah, blah. So all I'm going to say is I will follow the policy and keep the board informed, especially when complaints come my way. I think that's important that I do respond, not only to the complaintee, but to the board who knew about, board member or board members that knew about the complaint.
And my last say to President Rose, and I guess to the other colleagues, I heard Board Member Hall mention that she wasn't at the meeting, and I'm done. Just to the degree that we have, you've brought this to the level of policy, and I've heard a lot of discussion, even when we were in the policy committee meeting, that we spoke on, what was the term? The pleasure of the board. I would just say that, and I know that you guys came up with a lot of these policies or practices or principles for better working conditions, et cetera. But to accomplish, my opinion, better working conditions, even after a meeting takes place, not to just make broad, we understand that it's, a 7-member board, and that whatever's a majority, et cetera. But in order to accomplish real, impactful, and serious, I guess, what have we been talking about? Overall connection somehow, realizing we're not always going to agree, but certainly there was a comment made, I think, in the policy meeting, you can agree to disagree, and certainly we will. I think it's just best when we have another workshop or something to have a filler, to get or to open kindly the discussion again to those who missed, because again, we've talked about that. Everybody's not going to make every meeting, but their opinions, their comments, their thoughts about it, it is going to affect the board overall. To agree to it or disagree, it affects. I remember when you first brought this, I was highly offended because I take serious the role of visiting schools. So when this was initially presented, it almost seemed like a shutout until I continued to review it. And I'm trying to, work with it. But I have to be honest with you. When I make a vote on anything as it relates to the condition of the building, funds that go into a building, I need to believe that I have seen that the building is falling down or whatever is the case. So, I recognize the position and that whole bit, but we have to be mindful of how we word things, and I know you guys spoke last time about previous and our predecessors and people who have done or exhibited behavior that was not necessarily, but it's unfortunate that these policies, and I will say that, weren't policed or lorded over the other individuals, because people who are doing what they're supposed to be doing and following guidelines, it does come across as not really a team-like environment. So once we do this again, and I'm sure we will, just that we all participate or get an opportunity, and a missed meeting does not mean you are not a participant in the dialogue. That's all I want to say.
I have one last comment. As far as in regards to communicating with other members on the Board of Education, the only thing we pretty much mentioned here is agreeing to adhere to the Open Meetings Act. But I also feel like, again, and I'm going to also state again about this meeting that I was not in attendance of course not on purpose, that we make every effort to make sure that all board members are informed and included on all meetings or communications or information pertaining to board business and making sure that meeting dates are clear, and that we're making every effort that every board member can be attendance in the meetings.
Okay. Any other comments at all? We've got a number of corrections and revisions that would have to happen to the existing motion. So I need to ask our recording secretary if she's noted, all of these things that are been talked about, and if you're comfortable with that, then I am going to have to ask for a revised motion to include the corrections and revisions as we've discussed here in the previous minutes. And just to make a note too, and stuff, board policy is always open in the board policy committee and other board meetings for revisions and additions, subtractions, whatever we like to do. There's some revisions and corrections we'd like to make with this, and everybody's understanding of that. So I think that I need to have a revised motion to include the corrections and revisions as we've just discussed here in the previous minutes.
Okay, I'll amend my motion to read that I move that the board policies be approved with the additional amendments and changes that have been brought up at this meeting and that are in the secretary's minutes.
I have a motion then by Mr. Heisel. I need a second. Second. Second by Mrs. Sanders. Do I have any other comments or questions?
There are two others, but I'm not going to go into it. It's just very, very simple. Public comment, you can read the two red ones on your own. It's more of limiting or enforcing the fact of 5 minutes, and that if it goes beyond 5 minutes, the president has the right to ask that the person who's speaking to follow it up with the superintendent or designee, and then to have the superintendent or designee get back to the board at the next board meeting as to what happened. The board president also actually has the right in number 7 to just simply say that public comment time has expired, and even if there's 4 more people out there to speak, the president could exercise the right to say that again needs to either be taken up with the superintendent, administration, or come to the next board meeting. Now, I don't envision our president or the board saying you just can't even get up and say anything unless it's some like community forum where we've been listening to people for almost 2.5 hours and there still may be a few people left, but it's truly time to end the meeting, and maybe there's some sort of statement of a follow-up or follow-through. The last one is just simply a new law that I think that is very important for us to know, and that is we can now discipline a student who makes threats against a school employee, a student, or school-related personnel on the internet. So this whole Facebook thing, where it used to be if you're at home in the privacy of your home on your computer, the law at one point last year, you could almost say and do anything that you wanted to say or do, short of saying that you would kill somebody or that you would commit suicide, those two things, and really you couldn't do anything about it. But now you can, and the reason why this is important, especially for the board and the policy committee, is that now since we do approve the student handbooks every year, we are going to put this in the handbook under a certain, level of discipline. There's levels of infractions and levels of consequences, and so it's going to become a consequence. We haven't decided what it will be yet, but we will certainly make that recommendation to the board as to what we feel is appropriate. and then allow the board to counsel us or to just simply say they agree, and then we'll approve the handbooks. But this will definitely be one change in the handbooks.
President Rose and Dr. Rogers, the only thing I want to ask of us as a board and is the board policy, and probably too as a chairperson on the policy committee, is we sit in these long meetings for policy and establish policy. And just as we did our board workshop, it's almost just pivotal that we have some sort, and I think we talked about it briefly, some sort of forum update, because these are the guidelines, these are the rules of the district, the bottom line, and we have been in too many situations where they're not followed, be it in the school, be it teachers, administrators, whomever. And just as you would have us to follow, we've put things together for us to follow guidelines. This is it's a living document, if you will, to some degree, and it's not enough to just write them down. Earlier when we talked about the PTO scenario, it's not going to be enough just to have a new policy, but as you have a plan to make sure that this is disseminated, and I would say the same for the policy in general. We update policies probably we meet every other month or so, and quarterly, so some way to disseminate them, because ultimately you get the beginning of the year book. Every policy is not in there, but if you have the expectation that people should follow these rules, even people who work for the district, I don't know that people are just walking around with this as a handy guide, but you said yourself to me, these are some pretty steep policies, and we're talking about them here. How do they get out to the public? And I mean, like yesterday, so I don't know if we do some type of blast, but if there's an expectation that they should be followed, and there are consequences because they are their rules.
I'm not going to have the complete answer to this because I thought about what you have been saying. Not just you, the whole policy committee has said this. So I agree. I think that for now, just my short answer for right now is that first of all, I just want to be clear that all policies, the entire breadth of the board policies, there are things that relate to personnel that should, probably be, or consider to be, if it's not already there in the personnel or the employee handbook. There are some that relate to student and parents that should be in the student-parent handbook, and then there's some that relate to administrators that should be in the administrator handbook that is forthcoming. There's some that are strictly about the board, like board governance and so on. I'm not so sure if that needs to be in, every handbook and so on. I do think that there needs to be some sort of update that we could give internally to our staff until it gets into those actual books. So I will work with Melissa on that, because we're just now talking about sort of, I think you might have even got it, the board members even, I'm not sure, but she just developed something this week called News You Can Use, and it was a blast that went out on the new calendar, and it's just a different format of really important information that you can use right away, and maybe we need to do something like that after policy committees. Again, not every policy is appropriate necessarily for staff members to know, but there are some that are critical that and those are the ones that we should at least on record say we've given this information out. And then eventually, I strongly believe it needs to be in a manual. If it is truly appropriate, it needs to be in the appropriate manual that people go over and sign off on, because the signature is everything to me, not just that it's on the internet.
Okay.
So I will think about it deeply.
Mr. President, I have one question. I guess the superintendent can answer this. On page 81, the bottom bullet, communicating with the media. It seems to me, I looked at this a couple of times, it just kind of stands out. It seems to me that this is a go, no-go situation. So if the president is not available, what happens then?
probably would go down the chain of command. Vice President would take over, and then it would first go through the officers. If it gets past that, we probably shouldn't say anything.
Is that somewhere captured to address that?
I'm just suggesting right now that that probably should work, but, I listen for comments from the rest of the board, too,
I think maybe what Board Member Brown might be suggesting is, do we need to also add to that, if the board president is not available, then we will follow the next officer in command.
Yes.
I don't have a
Whoever
problem with
that, whomever that may be.
Anybody else have any comments
Yeah, we don't
about
have
that?
to say who it is, but I think it leaves us an out.
Oh, absolutely.
Me, myself, I don't mind being on TV.
Been on the radio.
I don't know about that.
Okay.
Succession of the
succession of, something about the succession of officers. We'll fix it up. We'll put whatever revisions in the minutes so that the board can see that the revisions have been made when you approve the minutes of this meeting.
Okay. Any other questions or comments at all? We do have a revised motion on the table right now, so if there's no other comments, then I'd ask the secretary to please call a roll.
Mr. Heisel?
Aye.
Mrs. Sanders? Aye. Mrs. Stockton?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mrs. Coletti?
Aye.
Secretary, aye. President Rose?
Aye. The approval to the board policies with the revisions as noted is approved. The next item we have on the action items is the settlement of an EEOC claim. And I have a written preparation on a motion that I need for approving this settlement, that the board approve the EEOC claim which the board was apprised of in the board FYI dated 2/24/2012. And I have a motion for that.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Heisel, or, I'm sorry, Mrs. Coletti. I'm sorry.
I'm not telling Karen you are.
And seconded by Mrs. Stockton. Do we have any questions or comments? If not, then would the secretary please call a roll?
Mrs. Sanders? Aye. Mrs. Stockton?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Abstain.
Mrs. Coletti?
Aye.
Mr. Heisel?
Aye.
Secretary, aye. Mr. Rose?
Aye. The motion to approve the settlement of the EEOC claim is approved. The next item we have on the action is the IHSA membership renewal for the year 2012-2013. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve that IHSA membership renewal.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Brown, second by Mr. Heisel. Do you have any questions or comments, or Dr. Rogers, you want to make anything on that?
I think in the future, unless the board tells me different tonight, this is done annually, and it's never a fee. And basically, all it is saying that you're first of all, you want to renew your membership, you want to be a part of the IHSA. So you can receive all correspondence and play in IHSA conferences and tournaments. And second of all, that you're willing to abide by the IHSA rules. So really, this should be under the consent agenda. I really don't see where we need to discuss this every year, because it's the exact same print every year. It's just a different date. So other than that, I have no comments. And next year, I will put it under consent unless the board tells me to do otherwise.
Okay. Do you have any comments from the board at all? If not, would the secretary please call a roll?
Mrs. Stockton?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mrs. Coletti?
Aye.
Mr. Heisel?
Aye.
Mrs. Sanders?
Aye.
Secretary, aye. Mr. Rose?
Aye. You've approved the membership to the IHSA membership renewal. The next items that we have in the action items are in the business section for the first item being contracted lawn maintenance. So I need a motion to approve the contracted lawn maintenance agreement specified in the minutes.
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Heisel.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Stockton. Do we have any comments or questions? Or Bob, would you like to make some?
Sure, this is the annual lawn cutting maintenance contract. We outsource a portion of the district grounds are cut by an outside firm. The bid was advertised in the Southtown newspaper and the district website. Bid packets were placed online and faxed to companies that requested. 4 companies submitted bids. The bid tally sheets are attached. The funding for these services come out of the O&M fund. The total cost, the low cost for a per cut is $786, and based on the cutting season, that should total about $25,152. The low bidder was Priority Landscaping, so administration is recommending that the board accepts the proposal from Priority Landscaping for $786 per cut.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Bob, do we ask for references to your knowledge when we seek bids, or do we just go with?
I believe so. I believe that's part of the bid packet information that we collect. I would have to check to see the bid packet for the specific bid that went out, but I'm pretty sure that they asked them to submit references.
Okay. And to your knowledge, we have never used this contractor before. This is the first time?
I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the first time for Priority Landscaping, at least within the last 4 or 5 years that I know of.
And we had to let go, to my knowledge again, a previous landscaper company before, last year, was it last year?
Our vendor that we had 2 years ago had some performance issues, so on the subsequent year, we determined them to be not a responsible bidder. This year, we would have allowed, that contractor to come in again and try, to bid just like anybody else, but they did not submit a bid this year.
Okay, hopefully this is the last question. Do we seek a performance bond from the contractors?
Yes, I know that is part of the bid specs that go out.
So we do not absorb the cost if we have to go out and solicit another contractor if the
Right.
bid is, if it's high or whatever. Right?
Exactly, right.
Okay, great, excellent.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? If there's no further questions, we do have a motion, so would the secretary please call a roll?
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mrs. Coletti?
Aye.
Mr. Heisel?
Aye.
Mrs. Sanders?
Aye.
Mrs. Stockton?
Aye.
Secretary, aye. Mr. Rose?
Aye. And a motion to approve the lawn maintenance agreement is approved. The next item we have is for contracted lawn fertilization and pest control. Again, I need a motion to approve the existing quotation and contract for lawn fertilization and pest control.
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Heisel,
Second.
second by Mrs. Stockton. Do you have questions or comments regarding this?
Bob, when it states in the recommendation, in order to be fiscally responsible, the O&M department is recommending that the grayed out cells in the documents be deducted from consideration. Are you saying that those will not be included, those are not included in the bid?
There were various, depending on the time of year and location, what field it is, there's different what do you call it, applications that are, for all these different locations. And on some of them, the O&M department determined that they weren't absolutely necessary, or based on the fact that if it's a new field, it's the first year, maybe, you don't have to do a certain kind of fertilizer on that grass, or they went through and took out all the items that were not completely necessary in their opinion to help the costs be lowered. I think if we would have took everything that was bid out, the total bid would have been over $60,000. So they went through all the different applications and made sure that the very important things were in there for, the main high school grounds, the football field, all the different fields, different weed controls that you must have. For different things that would be nice to have but weren't totally necessary, they would take those out and not, basically not order those services. So then that brought the contract total down about $20,000. So we'll still have all the fertilizing and weed control that we need, but we're not overdoing it. We're not, it's not overkill. So that's basically what that statement is saying. And then, I have the details of exactly what they backed out and their rationale behind each one. I don't believe it's in the board packet, but I do have the information from our grounds department with me tonight. But pretty much they took me through that, and that's what they're doing with that.
So if we had left the 60,000 in, would their bid have been over 100,000?
No, the total bid with everything in would have been a little over 61,000. If we take out the items that we didn't think were necessary, it brings it down to 41,000. So the low bidder was True Green.
Okay, so they were already the low bidder.
Right.
And then we got it lower.
Yeah, first we selected.
So we didn't take out to make them the low bidder?
No.
Okay.
Either way, whether you kept them in or took it out, they're still a low bidder by far. They were much less than the other bidders that we had.
Thank you.
Just to follow up, I guess, on that. I'm looking at these bids, and wow, for them to come in that much under the highest bidder, second highest bidder, and relatively speaking to the third bidder there, I guess the question is, have we used them before, True Green?
Yeah, True Green has been the company that we've been using for the past several years.
Been satisfied?
Yeah, we've been satisfied, and this year we're requiring more services from them. We used to do just the bare minimum, and with our new irrigation system and some of the new fields we've established, we wanted to make sure that we're properly maintaining and feeding and weed control all the different grounds. So this contract it's much larger in scope than we've done in the past, but True Green has always been, they've always been the low bidder for these, or actually we didn't bid out these services previously because it was a much lower dollar amount, but they were the vendor that we used consistently.
Well, and I guess that's my point. We have increased the number of applications per our bid, and I'm just wondering if the lower bid is a result of a less of a concentration within the application. So I know that's a whole new story, but
right.
I guess I can't tell.
No, that's definitely not the case. The bid specs, on this bid were very specific and very detailed. So, down to it has all the scientific specifications of what minerals and at what concentrations and what percentages.
Okay.
We basically have a prescription and a plan of exactly what we want, and then that's the bid specs that we put out. So that's what they're bidding on, and then that's what they have to deliver, those exact specifications.
Excellent. That's what I was looking for.
Okay.
Thanks, Bob.
Any other comments? If not, we do have a motion. Will the secretary please call a roll?
Mrs. Coletti?
Aye.
Mr. Heisel?
Aye.
Mrs. Sanders?
Aye.
Mrs. Stockton?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Secretary, aye. Mr. Rose?
Aye. The lawn fertilization and pest control contract is approved. The next item we have in the action items is the staffing resolution recommendations. that are in the board packet and prepared by Dr. Edison. So I need a motion to approve the staffing resolutions as presented.
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Heisel.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Colletti. Dr. Edison, if you'd like to make some comment.
Thank you, President Rose. This is our annual staffing report that we are required by law to present to the board for recommendation for approval. A couple of years ago, we moved this up to from April to March to ensure that we are in compliance with all of the laws as far as making these recommendations and approvals prior to specific deadlines from the school code. The report is in 11 sections. Just briefly go through what they represent. Section 1 are our continual contractual staff. So those are our tenured teachers that are coming back. Section 2 are our current fourth-year staff members who will now be obtaining tenure for next year. Section 3 are our first, second, and third-year pre-tenured staff and their recommendation for renewals of their contract. Section 4 through 7 are our non-renewals for pre-tenured teachers. Our support staff non-renewals. Section 9 are our permanent guest teacher non-renewals.
And Section 10 includes all of our current retirees for the school year, as well as our current resignations. So we are asking for the board to approve these recommendations.
Tony, I just have one. Somebody is listed in the retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Should they also be listed in the reemployed, the Section 1, or, because
Should they be listed? No, they shouldn't be in the section.
There's one person I see who's listed as retiring and also listed as being reemployed at the end of the term, so.
All right, if we could see who, we could talk about who that is, but.
I don't know.
Right, they shouldn't be in both. If they're
It's
retired.
probably a typo or something, but
Right.
it's just that person, I happen to see was listed in both places.
Okay.
Dr. Edison, for Section 4, is the board at liberty to for the decision that was made on this?
Those specifically in open session, but I can speak to you on them in closed session. But basically, they're from the recommendations. They're based on performance, and they're from the recommendations from the building administrators on areas of concern with performance.
Okay. So, thank you so much for answering that. Now, the other remaining sections with the recommendation to bring the tenured teachers back and the non-tenured teachers back, how did that align up with our budget as far as staffing is concerned? Are we adding more or what? Or less?
Right now, this is.
Before we get into the budget.
This is taking the existing staff, so this does not include any additions as far as our staff. So all of the individuals on here are current staff members. So it's not adding any additional staff. One of what some of the resolutions will do, or some of the sections will do, will actually lessen the staff. And then once we are completed with our full staffing, so for instance with some of our support staff members, once we complete our annual reviews, our special education annual reviews, we'll know then the need that we will have to reemploy some of those staff members. So what this does is it safeguards us from having an overflow of staff.
Got it.
So yeah, all of these there are no new staff recommendations or anything in this.
So to summarize it, we're talking about the staffing that you're recommending that we go forward with is all the sections minus Section 4, Section 5. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Going forward with the staffing, the recommended staffing for 2012, 2013. not including adding more, is what we have right here, minus Section 4 and Section 5.
No, Section 4 and 5 are also included. So those are non-renewals that's in Section 4 and 5.
Right.
So those are included as well.
Okay.
Those are included in the overall resolution.
Got it, okay.
Okay. But it's just divided up that those are the ones that we're requesting non-renewals for.
Got it, okay. That's clarity on that. Thank you.
President Rose, the resolution motions are on, I believe it's page 113.
Okay. Well, we already do have a motion on the floor, so I need to make a revision to the motion to include the correction from the retirement person, the extra name there. So the motion to approve the resolution authorizing the reemployment of teachers and certified personnel for the 2012-2013 school terms and notices of dismissal, resignations, and retirement with the addendum of the one correction that we have. I need a motion for that.
I'll move to approve with the amendment.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Heisel, second by Mrs. Colletti.
Can you just explain, Dr. Edison, this, that the following for staff as listed be honorably
discharge. Can you explain that? Yes. The support staff primarily are based upon our assistants, our teacher assistants, and their employment is based upon need. And the need, it has to be predetermined based upon the IEPs of the students. The IEPs are looked at each year, and so we can't determine how many or who exactly we will need until they have their annual reviews. So once the annual reviews are completed, then we can reconvene and say, okay, we need this number of those support areas back. And then we will recall those individuals based upon the need. The individuals that are listed in this are just the individuals who are on the probationary period. So these are those who have worked less than a year within the school district.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. But will return?
The majority of them probably will.
Based on a need?
Based on need, yes.
Okay, and since they were honorably dismissed at the 2011-2012, I think Mr. Brown alluded to it, budgetary-wise, we have to have the funds because it is designated for IEP or for the, okay.
Dr. Edison, haven't you already placed or is recommending placing some of these people or personnel in Section 8 to different positions already? Or no?
No, that has not been done as of yet. For next year, no, it hasn't been done.
Okay. I think I might have seen something that I thought was that, but okay. Okay.
And these support positions, are they, which positions are they?
They are
combination of. I'm requesting to know what the positions are for Section 8, the support positions.
They're paraprofessional positions, so most of them are teacher aides, some of them are our nurses positions, but because of some of the language within the ACME union, even though, for instance, we know we're going to have those nurses coming back, we still have to include them in this because they are under the first year of employment, and so they have to be included as well. We can't exclude them from being listed. But positions like that, like the nurses, we know we have to have those nurses back, so those people will be coming back. But they, for technical reasons, based on the contract with ACME, they have to be included in the resolution.
Okay, gotcha.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
I don't know if it's Dr. Edison and Mr. Heisel. I don't know where we were, but you were explaining this tenure process, and I'm just curious, because we do this every year. I've kind of whispered it over here to John. We do this every year. The teachers who are, let's just say, non-tenured, how is this going to affect with the new law that's supposed to be in effect as far as whether or not the job is being done satisfactory? I mean, when we get to these times, this is a given that we have to do it, but would we be doing it if they haven't met? We should have a larger list, perhaps, other than...
We don't have to. You're talking about the law is, if you go to a massive reduction in force, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a non-tenured staff person now because of the change in the law, it's based on evaluations. And since we're not doing that, it doesn't apply in this case.
And if you notice, this list is actually smaller than what we've had in the past.
Right.
Because the 2 previous years, we did reduction in force. This year, we're not. And as a result, the list is smaller and it's less, actually it's less complex.
Okay. I think because I was in error in my sequence of resolutions in order to address the concerns of staffing recommendations here, I need to have a couple other motions done prior to us resolving the motion to approve and authorize the reemployment of the teachers and certified personnel. So what I need to do now is to have a motion to open the floor for public discussion concerning the staffing recommendations for 2012-2013 school term. I need a motion in order to open the public discussion of that.
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Heisel.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Sanders. The floor is now open for public discussion, if anyone cares to comment on that. I'm only following the rules.
I'm going to go into cardiac arrest.
Okay. Since we have no one that wants to make public comment that's visible in the audience, I'd like to entertain a motion to close the floor to public comment and discussion concerning staffing recommendations for the 2012-2013 school term.
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Heisel.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Hall. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Abstentions, none. We do then now have a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the reemployment of teachers and certified personnel for the 2012-2013 school term and notices of dismissal, resignation, and retirements, with the change and correction of the one item that we have so noted.
You already had the motion.
We've already had the motion. So what I need to do is to have a roll call for that. Would the secretary please call a roll?
Mr. Heisel?
Aye.
Mrs. Sanders? Aye. Mrs. Stockton?
Abstain.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mrs. Coletti?
Aye.
Secretary, aye. Mr. Rose?
Aye. The motion to approve the reemployment and of teachers and personnel has been approved. Next item we have on the agenda is to mosey down here to registration for fiscal year 2013. The calendar for that, I'd need a motion to the year 2013.
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Stockton.
Second.
Second by Mr. Brown. Mr. Elrod, I believe you can discuss this?
Very briefly, we had a pretty good discussion at our last meeting, and basically the calendar, it was around the calendar, just to kind of revisit the whole rationale real quickly. I brought out the fact that for years we have had various elements associated with registration, number of days, the way registration had been structured as far as new and returning and the whole registration process. So basically, what I wanted to have done today is if you would take a look at the calendar on 115, and I can go through it very briefly. The recommendations that were made by the board were very good recommendations, and one of those in particular was the fact that I had alternating days for new and returning. It was recommended by Board Member Hall, I remember, in that we should put those together to reflect the two returning days blocked together for both different groups, new and returning. So we've done that, which makes quite a bit more efficient. And also, we did another survey, by the way, to take in. If you look at Monday the 30th, the employee board registration day, we did sample the staff. We sent out by means of it's a technology implemented piece that really solicits the vote as well as board members who have students currently in the district, so that we would have an idea of how, again, to use this calendar in our time
more efficiently. And what we found was there was roughly 49 staff who worked for us out of probably a few hundred that have students currently in the district. So this will gauge our activity around using school reach to open it up to have returning staff or returning people from neighborhoods and from the communities to come in on that particular day to finish out that day. If you look at the other days, they're all blocked together to represent what was requested. And then that last day is still the day that we will deal with all families. The hours are the same relative to what we discussed. The rest of the calendar there was not a problem, if I recall. If so, please refresh my memory. But the quality assurance, again, is to clean up any technological and registration areas that we need to make sure that are in our database, so that in one school, we plan is to have the vast majority of. We also recommended that we shorten the length of registration down, regular registration down to 5 days from what we were doing before, which was running 8 days or more. And the board, in principle, at our last meeting, agreed to that. What I would like to do, if there are no objections, is to have the board approve the schedule as is, so that we can go forward and complete the rest of our planning. And also, what I'd like to do is make the week of registration part of the calendar available to the public soon thereafter this meeting. The rest of the calendar is for board consumption only. Are there any questions?
So it's my understanding that the first day of school is August 22nd, and there's no registration until Tuesday, right? The 28th?
Can you just talk into the mic? She's having trouble.
I can't hear you.
I don't know if it's something with the mic or something, but I'm sorry.
Did you hear me, George? You can't hear me either?
I might hear it. I mean,
are you guys under the air?
Am I what now? I mean, I'm my hearing aid.
Can you hear me, Tony? You can hear.
He's got younger ears than I do.
Signaling going, I can't hear her, so that's.
I was saying. No,
okay.
First day of school is August 22nd, so the first opportunity to register would be August 28th. Is that correct? After the first day of school?
That is absolutely correct, because if you recall in our previous discussion, with all of the various avenues in which we have communicated and planned to communicate to, I think there were like 20 plus items in the handout, technologically print that we have done and will continue to do. I think one of the items that you noted that we didn't have in both sections was the electronic versus the notices that we would go out to all parents. So given that, what we'd like to do and use that quality assurance week, going back to being more efficient, once we've got the vast majority of the people registered, then we will take a look at what our numbers are. And if need be, we would exercise the information notated in the calendar in the respective places, but we need to be able to have that week without having to register anyone to make sure IDs, bus routes, and all the other things that are intact and have been processed for the vast majority of the people who took advantage of the calendar and the time that we have given them, so that we can effectively and efficiently get the vast majority of the people who followed the time schedule in school and registered on time.
I guess my only concern is, are those days counted against the students? Would those be considered absent days, or their days don't start until
If
they're
they're not registered, we can't count anything against them.
Gotcha.
George, I'll just clarify that. In terms of ADA for funding, I mean, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't count, if they're not registered, they're not absent, because, you know, it's not going to hurt your percentage. But when you're looking at funding for ADA, it's just a matter of gross numbers of student attendance days. So if the person's not registered, or if they're registered and absent, is essentially the same thing, because you're not recording students in the seats. So, you know, just the same idea of, if you have a student who's absent all the time and for some reason has to be suspended or expelled, that student not being at school, I mean, it's better to have them at school 2 days a month than 0 days a month. And, you know, it's just, that's just kind of the point I'm trying to get across, in terms of, even though they're not registered, it is just less students that you're recording attendance for. With that being said, a lot of times the first month of the school year is not one of the best 3. So a lot of times it's not factored into funding, but it has, I think 2 years ago, it was one of the best 3 months. So you always want to try and maximize attendance if you could, because you really don't know which of the 3 months are going to be your best 3.
And that you're referring to the funding from the state, where you report the
Right.
attendance and pick the 3
So
months.
our general state aid is based primarily on student attendance, our average daily attendance multiplied by whatever the foundation level is.
But we don't usually include these. Is that what you're saying?
If a student is not registered and not cool, a good thing, because we want them to register on time and we want them to come to school every day. That's the best thing for the student, for learning, and then also for attendance funding.
And we said that we're doing school reach, we're sending out postcards, right? It's going on and we're also letting them know at the end of the school year, right?
We're sending home notifications and progress reports, report cards, school newsletters, the entire spectrum as it relates to the communication that goes out before they go home. Over the summer, we're going to use all the awnings around the district. We're placing literature or postal mailings in all the businesses that are business partners.
And the post office.
It'll be communication ad nauseum, in all the ways that we can get it out to people, so that they have been duly communicated.
And this is in August, Crete.
Oh, this is in all of our, in all 4 villages, and as well as in the newspapers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We do have a motion on the table to approve the calendar as presented, so with that in mind, all those in favor of approving the registration calendar as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Abstentions? No abstentions. The registration calendar is approved as presented. I'd like to take this opportunity, probably before we get into administrative updates, that if we need to take a 5-minute break, anybody need to do that? We can come back and finish this up and then proceed. So.
Oh, were you very stuck?
5 minutes, go leave. Do what you need to do real quick.
I did it.
You already did.
Hey, I wasn't going to wait for you.
You wouldn't wait.
It was
I'm timing. so,
desperate.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Okay, military day.
Okay, to women, that means 10.
Whoa.
We have a closed session.
Yeah, there will be a closed session. About 3.
Come on, trustee. Come on, trustee, soon to be commissioner. You know what this we'll be out there. We will be out there to vote, okay?
It's shut down right now. Maintenance was pulled on it today.
Trying to save.
Time save.
Is it crazy down there at the stadium?
Yeah. I was watching the Wolves game here.
Tonight? Tonight?
Yeah. No, they're down in Orlando.
Oh, they playing? Really? That wrong? That wrong?
They were my 17 the last time.
Really? Cool. Wow. In other words, they haven't been.
Little ones. You want one?
Well, ever since that Miami Heat game, that's right.
I just seen it game like He shot it jump around. Well, you know who his father is. And he's strictly had a real attitude out there with players. Yeah, he was hard. He was tough. He was a small guy. Small guy. I know.
Okay. Yep.
Really? Oh, I wonder if his son is.
Fire call? Fire call? I got it right in the back of the truck. Mikey was here? Oh. Huh?
Oh, I know, you poor thing.
That guy from New York was the D-League.
Oh, yeah.
Lean somebody.
The Asian guy. Yeah.
Ooh, reduced fat.
He wasn't known much in college. He went to
I think
Harvard.
I like them better than regular.
Yeah.
We gotta get some of these. They're better than the regular ones. I don't know.
I said the Bulls had a shot at him at one time.
He would be a real good compliment.
It's back there. You climbed up the bed. She abstained. Abstained
Oh, I saw the highlights.
person.
the resolution.
My campaign team consists of one person.
Kind of a political wife machine, right?
I don't have the,
You want all the glory.
Where's my Where's my diamonds?
Yeah.
There's three women that I was talking to.
Oh, yeah.
One of her bosses' ex.
My boss's ex-wife and two of her friends. One, they're
First
run
thing they
people-
said,
It's not
people's
here in the
campaigns.
U.S.
So they're trying to get some advice.
Oh, God.
first thing they said is, you know what, your wife's going to be stressed a lot because of.
At least.
It's hot in here.
You should get ready to
To make her happy.
Oh,
I want us to save it.
well, sounds good to me. They're gonna go with their idea.
I'm like, it sounds good in theory.
Our margaritas, when are we getting our margaritas?
Yeah, they should be in a board policy.
Margaritas.
Yeah, go to Jason's and get some margaritas.
I know.
Closed session.
Or come, Guinness.
Isn't tomorrow the big day?
Okay.
Are we done with George?
Looks like everybody's returned, and thank you very much for being
Matthew Armstrong. Who the hell?
on time. So, with that in mind, we'll move on to the administrative updates. And the first item there is the FOIA update from Mr. Elrod.
I have just one brief report, and we received it February the 10th. It was completed on the 14th, and there was a request made by a Mr. Matthew Armstrong regarding board and administrative policies and procedures related to the issue or the use of facilities by community organizations, building rental fee schedule, building rental applications from and/or procedures, and also the rental group categories. Those were the things that were requested. That was completed on February 14th, and that is all I have to report under the Freedom of Information Act.
Okay.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Elrod on that? If there is not, then we'll move on to the next update, which is from curriculum, the supplemental educational services information, and Laura Hirsch is presenting that. Thank you very much.
I have a brief report too, although I don't think it'll be as brief as George's. That's kind of a switch too, George.
Don't encourage.
Oh, I'm sorry.
you to say
Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. All right. I have a friend that actually does that for a living with the cell phone. I want to update the board on supplemental educational services. We provided two reports, I believe, earlier in the year, one in the summer and one leading up to our first session, which was held in November through December. And this is the supplemental educational services that are required by Title I for students at Balmoral and Crete Elementaries, and those students have to meet our income eligibility requirements. During our first session, as I said, we held that November, December, although we had a couple of providers that extended things a little beyond that time period because they got a late start. But we did serve 72 students from those two schools. We had 11 tutoring companies that provided services for those students. Two were on-site at both buildings, and the other ones were off-site. And we spent a total of $55,721 out of our Title I set-aside for supplemental educational services. We are running now a second session, and we have, we did inform parents in December, very early December, about our second session, and when we came back from the holidays, we held a provider fair that parents could come to and meet more about their services, and then we collected their preferences of provider and tried to match them with their first choices. And we do have 73 students who are registered for this second session, and it's scheduled to last through the month of March. And 10 providers, so almost the same number that we had last time. And our estimated cost for this session is $73,657, and that's based on our $1,009.97 allocation that we have per pupil. So when all is said and done, and we actually finish paying out on the second session, we should spend somewhere in the area of $130,000 on after-school programs.
Are these all Title I funds?
Yes, they are all Title I. We are required to set aside 20% of our Title I funds for this in particular. So,
okay.
And I'm assuming there's such a big gap for the two sessions because the parents get to choose which programs. Are they costing, are there differences?
The allocation per pupil is exactly the same across the board. It's all based on an hourly rate, so if students don't, if they go to a 30-hour program and they only attend 25 hours of that program, the actual cost may be slightly less. So what we did was that's why the figure in the first session is lower, is because students may not have completed the full program.
And it's how much allocated per student?
$1,009.97. And that's based, and then we divide that by each provider has a specific hourly rate that they have, and we divide that accordingly.
So it looks like in the second session, those students pretty much took advantage of all hours.
Well, it's
about
going on
1,000
right now,
kids.
so right now it's in session, so this is just an estimate.
Out of curiosity, is there any data to show if this has made a difference?
Right now, I'm still waiting to collect all of the data from the providers on the students. I did look at our winter reading assessment data, and we did have 53 students that showed growth in the course of that program, which is good. I can't really say that it was a result of the tutoring because there's so many other factors that are involved, but each student has an individualized learning plan that each tutoring company designs for them based on pre- and post-assessment. So we're in the process right now of collecting the post-assessment data. It's when you're dealing with 11 different companies and they're in different parts of the state, and some are online, some are in different states, and they have offices here and they have offices in other states. It takes a while to collect everything from that.
Is it possible to obtain data from just the classroom instructions only without going as far as obtaining information from assessments? In other words, if a child is getting a D, go through the tutoring, now that child is getting a B in the class. Is there any way, we can stop and take a look and talk to the teachers or the principals or something without going through a formalized assessment process?
Well, the providers themselves do pre-testing and post-testing. So
Okay.
they actually have the data on their specific program.
That'd be great.
Right. I still don't have it all collected. If I do, I'll be able to look at that.
look
But
at
just
that.
based on our district data, we can see that we had a good
Percentage of students that had growth in their reading assessments.
Okay. And the parent eligibility letters that was sent out, and that's based on, again, on
free and reduced lunch.
free, really?
Mhm.
So are there eligible parents out there that's not in that kids that's not in that program?
Yes. We had approximately 500 students that were eligible, and according to our numbers right now, we're serving 145, which is about 30% of those students.
Okay. Yeah, the reason I asked, there was a couple parents gave me a call and asked, I just kind of oversee a program under the township of Monee for the youth, and we're trying to implement a tutorial program within our youth program, and I was just, this came to mind, this program. I'm like, okay, I needed to talk to you. So it's just ironic, I hate to say that, use that word, that we're talking about it tonight. So if these parents are eligible, how can I get them to talk to you about this? Or what? Is it too late? The session ends in another couple days here. Is it
Right.
a third session?
Right. And then,
Do we have a fourth session?
Yeah, the next session will start up again at the beginning of next school year.
Oh, so this is it, huh?
This is it for the year, and then we'll be running our regular summer school program, and then we'll start back up again.
So it's too late, huh?
Laura, is it correct, though, that all eligible
students based on who needed the tutoring and based on their parents' eligibility or income eligibility were notified of this?
Yes, we sent.
Anyone who would have been eligible?
Right, they would have received letters at the beginning of the year and then again in December. Plus, we had it, we had it posted, it was talked about at curriculum nights and newsletters.
Is it on the
School
website?
Reach. It's on the website.
It's on the website? Okay, so we did our due diligence.
Our due diligence.
I think
which
we
is
need to go
required.
back to getting on the phone and calling these parents. It's just my opinion. Because a lot of times these flyers get thrown out, kids don't give them to parents, or who collected the mail, did you get them, especially with something like this. This is an opportunity for kids to get free tutoring, and especially if it's working.
Yes.
Those low numbers as far as how many are participating, those alarm me, and this is something that's, free, and I'm just assuming that most of those people who are not participating, it was overlooked or something, because if you tell somebody, I will give your child tutoring for free,
Yes.
I'm assuming most of them will take, advantage of that.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Is this the first time we offer something like this?
Yes, this is
Oh,
our first
really?
year of doing it.
First year. And we're going to take a step back, evaluate it, and see if we're going to go forward next year.
Absolutely. It's much more complicated than, say, what we have to do for public school choice, which is pretty cut and dry as far as who's eligible and which building they can go to. This involves a lot more paperwork, a lot of record keeping. You're dealing with a lot of companies, so it's much more involved, and there's a lot more rules. So we tried to keep it as simple as possible, so that we were making sure that we're following all the rules and that we can keep tabs on it. Now that we've done it once, I've got a much better idea of how it should operate, and I think to Mrs. Hall's point about, making sure we do a better job of informing parents, certainly we can do that, but.
Now, again, what grade levels are we talking about here?
This is K-5.
K to 5, okay, K-5, okay.
And it's mandatory, right? This is a mandatory program?
It's mandatory that we offer it, yes.
Right, so we will have to do it again anyway, and then as far as even if we're not thinking it's working, we still have to provide this, right?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Laura. The next item we have is the information on the capital development grant. So, turn it over to Mr. Gruss.
On March 7th at our Finance Committee meeting, we discussed the capital development grant in great detail. This was the $23.28 million grant that we're supposed to receive from Illinois. We've been awarded the grant. We have not received the funding yet. Details and instructions are soon to come in the coming weeks. However, like I said, the funding has not actually been received yet. In anticipation of the funding, we went through several recommendations of how the funds should be used. On board book for under the Finance Committee meeting agenda are all the detailed proposals, line item projects that we proposed. But essentially what it is investing in the district's capital projects, fixing up building facilities, doing necessary maintenance to boilers, windows, roofs, classroom renovations, and piping systems, and various projects like that. The idea is to spend the money over a time period of 2013 through 2020. It's a long 7 or 8 year time period where you slowly spend the money strategically, very carefully on very carefully selected, very critical capital projects that are needed. What we've done is we've a plan for the next decade of all our facilities and what the capital needs are at each of these facilities, and then try to time it appropriately. Obviously, the more urgent and critical you do first, other things could wait a little while, but they're impending and they're going to be needed very soon. So the idea would be to use this money for those purposes, and then to spend it slowly so that you're maintaining those fund balances in the case that this plan and the state imposes several cuts on the district. anything from pension legislation to transportation funding changes to just different various funding that they are, could possibly cut from us in future years. You would have these reserves as possible, as backup reserves that you could use as on an emergency basis. Went through all the details of our projects that we proposed, and the idea would be,
once we actually receive the money, obviously there would be more discussion with the board and the community on what specific projects will get done and when. But for now, we kind of laid out that proposal. And my understanding was the Finance Committee was, in general, in agreement with the concept and what we discussed. So, at this time, I think if the board had any questions for myself or the Finance Committee, it'd be a good time for us to, elaborate on any questions you might have.
One of the things that it basically does is maintaining the infrastructure of the district. There are a couple of things like parking lots and access to Talala and Coretta Scott King. Both of those are also safety issues for bus pickup. We talked about that extensively. One thing, I don't know if you mentioned it tonight or not, Bob, is that it will free up $500,000 a year over the course of the next 8 years to move from building and grounds into operations. So we could move that $500,000 into the education fund. And that's a critical thing because it gives us the money. One of the things Bob said, though, is really something that we need to be aware of constantly. If the state does not meet its obligations or decides to reduce things, we could be in some serious difficulties. The three major ones right now are the reduction of the state contribution to TRS and putting that back on the districts. The other one is the transportation fund, and if they cut it again, because the governor has stated he does not think the state should pay for local transportation to get kids to and from school. I'm not exactly how he expects them to get here, but that's his thing. The other thing is just the general state aid. The state board has requested an increase again. We've seen delayed payments before, and we just don't know what's going to happen in the future. But if two of those three, if the transportation and the TRS issues were to come to fruition, we could be in a great deal of trouble. There is one other thing, although the legislation died, or at least it's dead as of now, a bill that came out of the House that said, basically, if the EAV in your district drops below zero or is flat, you cannot increase your levy at all. Now, what that would mean to the district is that if contracts and inflation cost you an increase over the next year, you would not be able to raise taxes enough to meet that increase. And as a result, serious cuts would have to be considered. And I talked to more than one superintendent, especially downstate, who simply said that if two of those three things or four things got passed, they're in a position where they would pretty much have to close school. They would simply not be able to operate. So with the $23.28 million, once we get it, and it's a big once, if it comes in, I think if we husband it, move it over the next 8 years very carefully, watch the fund balances, and if the state doesn't collapse on us, we can maintain the buildings in the district and still move $500,000 into the ed fund, and it would do our kids a heck of a lot of good.
Other comments? Sooner we get this, the better, but still waiting, so, when we get it, it'll be good for our balances, good for us being able to plan some well-needed maintenances that we've neglected over the years that we've had the district, so, Okay. Really don't have any other comments, then we'll move on to, thank you, Bob, for the report on that, and send a letter to the state and ask them to hustle up with the money.
Will do. Well, you know, I guess, I don't know if, I thought
Go
maybe
ahead.
Dr. Rogers was going to make a comment on this grant money, or do we have space for that? But regarding just the public having the opportunity to zoom in on this as
That's
well.
absolutely planned.
Okay.
Once we receive the money, we'll make arrangements to have some forums to listen to the various, public people in areas that are out there, where we won't neglect, any villages or things that, we possibly can. We'll have, I'm sure, 3 or 4 of these things, I would think,
Okay, just wanted that to be
on
on
a
the
timely
records.
manner before we do anything, so.
Okay. Great.
Okay? Old business. Anybody have any old business at all? Nope. We'll move on to new business.
I did want to say, we did have an education committee meeting, and Mr. Dugan introduced a list of possible reports that he can run off for the board to give us information on certain areas involving the district, including things like the amount of staff that we have in certain positions, attendance, discipline, things like that. And it was suggested that he create a portal for the board members in Skyward where we can access that information, and it's readily available to us on our own. And we having an education committee where all board members attended, and we had the opportunity to
through our laptops to go through this portal and get used to it and learn how to operate that. So I do want the board members to keep that in mind, because that will be coming up as a suggested date.
Yeah, it was a run meeting. Congratulations to Board Member Hall, kept us to an hour.
Oh, that's my kind of meeting.
But yes, we're in the process of purchasing a new module for Skyward called data warehousing. So once I'll include the possible reports that Mike talked about in one of the upcoming FYIs over the next couple of weeks. But we don't have access yet to all that information or the portal yet. It's probably a summer project, but once we do, we do plan on doing it. And once it's completed, I think that we'll, as Paul said, we'll talk to the board and maybe have a board workshop where you can know how to log on, and then you can see the information anytime you want to. And it's quite a bit of stuff you can see live at any time.
It makes the update you give us in the fall a little less, I mean, because it's
Yeah.
going to be the equivalent of that.
Yes.
Broken down on the portal that we could
Yes.
see, peruse through for our
Right.
needs. Okay.
And you would actually even get more information and things like attendance, class sizes, staffing patterns. There was a lot of different things that Mike had listed, and so you could see it, live as data even changes, from, let's say, week to week or quarter to quarter. You would be able to see it just by logging on.
I have one item that I'd like to at least suggest, or at least have some of the board to think about a little bit. In previous years, we have had the occasions in the dead of summer, like July, where because of the lack of really things happening in the district other than financial things of possibly not meeting in July. There's some motions that we would need to do in order to have the business manager, Bob, be able to pay bills and things like that, but I'd just like to throw that out on the table, as an option that we could possibly do. I don't think that it would really hurt us too much like that, so, a lot of the planning's already done, some of the other things are done, and, just kind of offering that to the table. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts or would like to think about that for a little while, it's just one of those things.
Okay, as long as I'm flexible.
I think it's a good idea. I got a wedding in July. I haven't got time for this stuff.
Whatever's in the best interest of the district.
Good answer.
Are you running for office?
I'm with her. If we don't need to have a meeting because things are slow, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like a waste of resources if we're just.
Well, you have to cool this place, you have to have, various, people supporting it, Pardon me? Well, it would be back then, but,
You're saving money.
No, Mark, it makes perfect
Yeah,
sense.
It does.
Well,
We don't need to.
if, I'm just listening to everybody, and everybody seems to be okay with it.
Yes,
So,
it's great.
I'll give that to Dr. Rogers to have him, address it and see if it's something that's workable, and we'll get back to everybody about something like that. too.
I just emailed Ray to send us a sample of the resolution that we would have to pass. It is true, there's not a lot that goes on in July, but what July does, the resolution just simply says really two things. One, that you will still allow the district to meet payroll for employees that do work through the summer, and two, that the end of the year bills that come in June can be paid in July without the board having to meet, because you in a sense give pre-approval to say, pay all your end-of-the-year bills to tie out the fiscal year, which
And
would be FY12.
there's nothing that would stop us from doing that in June.
Right.
We could do all of that then.
Exactly.
I think we've done it previously, too. That's
Yeah.
They have no need to be hiring or anything in July.
Well, we would still do, Board Member Sanders asked whether or not hiring is an issue. The board would still have to approve whatever interviews that we do during July, but they would just have to be approved in August. And we would tell people who we hire that, technically you're not official until the board actually approves you, but unless it's something that we think is controversial, that's really the only time that we call personnel committee meetings or things of that nature. And in that case,
We're just going to have to make sure that we take care of things, before June, and if there is an issue, it's just going to have to wait. I just can't imagine anything in July that can't wait until August for, a discussion, if it's that dramatic that I don't feel good enough to do something on my own that I would need board approval. I would just wait until, August when we meet to say, this needs your special attention.
And you would still do it?
Yes. Oh, yeah, I'd still do FYIs. Maybe a little less in July, but I'll do the FYIs, yes. Yeah.
It sounds like the board is willing to entertain that, so, whatever you come up with, Dr. Rogers, that seems to be okay. So,
Okay.
with that, any other new business anywhere?
I just want to say to the board, we're going to pass this out tonight. It has your name on it. I did ask Jeff Cohn, when he had that meeting with us, to give us, he gave us a long laundry list of books that could be read. I said, could you narrow it down to 2 or 3? And he named 3, of which I ordered just 3 single copies for me to start reading them. But this one was the first one I read, Culture of Inquiry. It's called Healthy Debate in the Boardroom. It's the thinnest, quickest, and smallest read of the 3. I want to give it to you because it really is a powerful book. And if you just read the first 20 pages alone, you could read it in less than an hour. And I'm going to address it a little bit in the next FYI, as far as if you would be kind enough to really consider reading just 20 pages of this book from here till our next board meeting, because I would be interested to see what your feelings are about it.
Yeah, we won't have a test, but...
Well, you won't have a test, but I may ask whether or not, based on the 20 pages, if you, I'll remind you of something I wrote as a reflection to the workshop, if you're willing to go to the next phase that Jeff talked about in terms of goal development and a couple other things that he mentioned. So it's a good book.
So you give us a vacation and then an assignment, Principal Roger.
20 pages, that's all. Quick read, 20 pages.
I gotta watch your presents.
I'm not the teacher.
Jesus.
Okay.
Reading is fundamental.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Next one is closed. We need to go to closed for personnel.
Personnel.
We need to have a motion to go into closed for personnel.
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Heisel, second by Mrs. Coletti. Secretary, please call a roll.
Mrs. Sanders? Mrs. Stockton?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mrs. Coletti?
Aye.
Mr. Heisel?
Aye.
Secretary, aye. Mr. Rhodes?
Aye. We are enclosed.
No, not everybody until Monday.
Next Monday.
Monday, that starts everybody.
We'll just plan on coming in then probably. 'Cause Peggy's been sick.
Oh, is she?
She couldn't even go to competition Saturday.
Oh.
We might. I mean, are you having any rehearsals?
You can say it now.
Got everybody? Come out of close. You need a motion?
Motion to come out of close.
Heisel, second by...
Oh, wait, the secretary needs to... Dang, how excited are we?
Coming out of close, signify aye.
Wait, can you type it? Ken, hold on. The secretary needs to get together here.
Sorry.
Okay, who moved to come out of close?
I did. Heisel.
Who seconded?
Second by Stockton.
Stockton.
Voice vote, all
Aye. We are.
Say amen.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Mrs. Stockton.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Sanders. All those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
No opposed. No. Thank you very much.
We're on vacation. It's July.
All right, thank you.
I found out what that issue is.
Okay.
Apparently, if you have students that, I might be getting around, students that are